Hello, I'm Dan Silver and this is the weekly Mirror Football podcast, available to download every Friday at mirrorfootball.co.uk and also available through iTunes. Now, in a week when we've discovered that there is something even worse than being a French prostitute, and that's being a French prostitute and discovering your next customer is Frank Ribery, we're joined by four gentlemen callers of our very own. Martin Booth is Deputy Sports Editor of the Sunday Mirror, Mike Allen is Sports News Editor of the Daily Mirror, Gareth Cox is Assistant Sports Editor of The People, and Steve Anglesey is the Mirror's 3pm columnist. Now let's start with our newcomer Gareth, who's known in the People office as the Toon Loon, although Paul Gascoigne may be suing him for copyright infringement there. Now Gareth, how the hell have Newcastle managed to go up this season, and how the hell are they going to manage to stay up next season?
Well, I think the most obvious factor has been stability this season. Mike Ashley, the owner, has cottoned on to the fact that going through 3 or 4 bosses in one season is not going to be a recipe for success. The squad far too strong for the Championship this year. The likes of Harper, Enrique, Nolan, Carroll have been very impressive this season. The next point will be, all eyes will be on Ashley. How much is he going to invest in the club? Or is he looking to sell it on to the first decent buyer?
And is it fair to say that Chris Hughton's exceeded expectations this season?
I think without any shadow of a doubt. He's not the most exciting of managers. He's got no Geordie background, which is always preferred up there. But he's done an amazing job this season. You know, the players seem to be playing for him, which a lot of the players were not doing for the various managers last season.
Martin Booth, do you think he'll still be there next season with the likes of Mark Hughes and that certain sheet metal worker's son from Gosforth kicking around?
I think it's fair to say, as Gareth just said, he has exceeded all expectations. Chris Hughton he's done an absolutely incredible job. When you look back to the middle of last August, when they took a 6-1 drilling at Leyton Orient, and we were all saying that they're going to go down again. Forget about 100 points, Championship, bouncing straight back. He's done a wonderful, wonderful job, and I think the question is not, will he be given a chance? Because the answer is yes, of course they're going to stick with him. It's how much of a chance he's going to get. If they have a tough first 6 games and after that he's got 2 points down the bottom of the table, then as you say, there's a certain sheet metal worker son from Gosforth on the sideline ready to step in.
Gareth, do you think he's got enough credit in the bank to get over a bad start next season?
I think he'll be given a bit of time, certainly by the fans. I think he's earned that. Whether Mike Ashley will give him a particularly long amount of time, if things do go disastrously wrong within a few months of the season, maybe not. I mean, Ashley's shown in the past he's not afraid to bin a manager at the first sign of trouble.
Surely the one of the lessons that's been learned this year anyway by Mike Ashley, surely, is that stability is key, and you keep things the same. Hughton is a safe pair of hands. He isn't spectacular, but he's done a fantastic job. He must have earned the respect of Ashley, he must have earned the respect of the fans, and maybe there's got to be a levelling off of expectation as well, and a realisation that you're not going to finish in the Champions League places, that you've got to build slowly and steadily, and you've got to have patience on the pitch, patience off the pitch, from the top all the way down to the terraces.
It all comes down to Ashley again, though. Is he in it for the long term? Is he just going to sell the club with the first chance? Because if he does sell the club, then Hughton will be the first person to go, you would have thought.
But you would have thought that they're going to need to spend, what, 20 million,
yeah,
30 million
in every position.
They do, don't they? Apart from the goalkeeper, I think there's almost, they do need a player, at least one player in every position. The good thing is that all those guys are still on such high wages that they're fairly unspectacular Premier League performers, weren't they?
Certainly the likes of Alan Smith and Joey Barton on £60,000-70,000 a week. Who's going to take them off Newcastle's hands?
I mean, Hughton said in the press yesterday that he will face difficult times in the transfer window and that he'll be bargain hunting this summer. Where should he start looking if they're not just to go back down with the team that did so appallingly in the Premier League last season?
Well, I think the first thing you have to remember is that although they did very badly last season, they only just got relegated. This season, the team seems to have got rid of some of the bad apples, and the whole club seems far more stable. The players clearly need to have some reinforcements, but the core of the squad is the same one that did go down last season, but maybe wasn't as united and didn't quite understand what was required. And I don't think that Hughton is going to be able to spend nearly 20 million. And so he's really going to be buying players, young players, who are going to have, if it come off, they're going to have a sell-on value. and he's going to really be bargain hunting and hope that he keeps that spine of the team fit. Kevin Nolan's been fantastic.
Yeah. He did, to be honest, on Nolan though, he did go missing at the end of last season when we really needed him. We really could have done with Nolan, playing a major part and scoring goals, in the Premier League, which he failed to do. So it'll be interesting to see how he does this time.
But again, maybe he's learnt his lesson, and maybe the respect that the players have got around him, because I gather that he was the one who pulled everything together in the summer after
the Orient
big
drubbing,
defeat at Orient that Martin was talking about, and he was the one who kind of brought the club together, and maybe he has realised what it takes to play for Newcastle, and they've got to bring in players who are prepared to fit in with that and not bring in these sort of fantasy signings who don't understand, just there for the money.
Let's have a quick poll around the table. Will Newcastle stay up next season, Mike Allen?
Yes.
Steve Anglesey?
I think they will. They need to add a bit of speed and a bit of cleverness, I think, but yes.
Yes, I think they will. I think Mike hit on it a minute ago. The key is managing expectations. I'm sure Gareth will agree there's been a slight tendency for fans in Newcastle to have a little bit over-ambitious at times. If they look just to consolidate, finish somewhere in the bottom half of the table, that's fine as long as they stay up, and I think they will.
Yes.
Gareth, staying up, Champions League, Europa League,
they will without doubt stay up. Depending on investment, it'll either be mid-table mediocrity, or they might even be challenging for the Europa League.
There we go. Expectations well and duly managed there. Now, West Brom will be joining Newcastle in the top flight this season, or next season rather, but the big news from the Black Country this week is that one of their most famous fans has defected from the BBC. Now, Steve Anglesey, as brilliant a presenter as Adrian Chiles is it too much to ask that he can save ITV's football coverage?
Well, you can't make it any worse, can he? I think it's a definite step up for ITV. Adrian Chiles, a very engaging presenter. He's got great rapport. I think Match of the Day 2 is a fantastic show, probably the best roundup show on the TV. But ITV is an awful lot to work with. He's a definite improvement on Gabby Logan. He's a definite step up from Steve Ryder. I just think ITV have almost given up on World Cups now. I think in 1998 they had a absolutely tremendous lineup of people. They had Brian Moore, who was coming to the end but was still the best commentator. They had Sir Alex Ferguson. They had Kevin Keegan, United after their spat. They got absolutely murdered in the ratings by the BBC. 2002 they had Keegan again, they had Fergie again, they had Des Lynam. They got absolutely spanked. They had Gazza going out and interviewing the fans in Trafalgar Square, which was fantastic. Murdered again by the BBC in the ratings. And since then, the tactics truck fiasco has occurred. They've got Andy Townsend and Terry Venables, who to me are not the most engaging pundits in the world. Clive Tilsley is locked in that great night in Barcelona. And I think the BBC have got quite a weak lineup as well. I think their pundits are old and tired, don't really know who their number one commentator is, but I still think that the BBC are the ones to beat. But Adrian Chiles cannot make it any worse than it is.
And Gareth, who do you think the broadcast stars will be for ITV and BBC this summer, and who do you hope gets a 4-week dose of laryngitis before the big kick-off? Clive Tills.
Out of interest, is Gareth Cox still part of the BBC team?
Yes.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He's still finishing his question from
Can someone explain to me the point of Gareth Cox?
Well, it looks a bit like Kermit the Frog. I think that might be it.
He is the most pompous broadcaster out there, and yet he's been going years and years on the BBC. It always amazes me completely.
It is a complete wonder, isn't it? Do you remember when he confirmed to Sven that England had qualified for the next round, even though Sven had just been managing the team who had qualified for the next round? He to me is, his career is something of a miracle.
Yeah.
Now, of course, Radio 5 Live presenter Colin Murray is the bookie's favourite. But Martin, who do you think should replace Charles on Match of the Day 2?
Well, as you say, Steve Ryder's available, isn't he? And
He's got
good hair for radio.
Well, if you wanted to sort of keep it in-house, if you like, and go with another professional baggy, Frank Skinner would do a great job. But joking aside, if they wanted to go with a footballer, one of the blokes who's a regular on the couch there, Lee Dixon, we've had him doing columns for us on the Sunday Mirror before. He's a very good thinker on the game, comes across well on the telly. As you say, it's a great gig to get whoever gets it.
It's a big hole to fill, and that's a feeling Frank Ribery and, of course, Fabio Capello must be sharing right now. With 6 weeks until the start of the World Cup in South Africa, there are rumours that injury-hit England will be moving their training base from the Grove to Holby City. Mike Allen, we've got Wayne Rooney and Rio Ferdinand as the walking wounded, and Aaron Lennon and Ashley Cole are still unfit. Should England fans be starting to worry?
Well, I think England fans, as opposed to Man United fans, will be worried that Rooney is now fit and playing again for United, because I'm sure all England fans feel that there's just one kick away from Rooney collapsing in a heap and England's hopes in the World Cup going with him. So maybe the biggest problem is that Rooney will play the last couple of weeks of the season. Ferdinand is a real problem, but there are so many issues. Apart from Rio's back problem, which has really restricted the number of games he's played this year, and he clearly won't be fit enough to play in every game of the World Cup for England. You know, Terry's fitness and form is a problem. Upson's playing in a team that's heading for relegation or just avoiding relegation. The goalkeepers, their situation is really critical. We've got one who's definitely going down, and another one who again is playing behind Upson, got big problems there. Gerrard's form is a problem. It just seems to me that everything seemed so good at the start of the season, and now the problems are mounting. Steven Gerrard not playing as well as he was a year ago. I think he's got real issues and great concerns as he goes into picking the World Cup squad, which is 5 weeks away. He's got to make that decision.
This always seems to happen with England coming into these big tournaments. The expectation levels go up, and then people seem to lose form. We've always got injuries to key players without fail. You know, this year seems to be the same as how it's been for the last 3 or 4.
Do you think it's the Premier League?
Could be too many games. It's the old problem, isn't it?
It's the intensity of the Premier League as well, isn't it? I mean, it really is. It's an incredibly difficult league to play in, I think.
And key players for Spain, Torres and Fabregas, both got injuries playing Premier League.
Yeah, and I think it's less of an issue as it has been for clubs in the Championship and League One and League Two. But I also think that the shocking winter that we had, and the fact that the pitches are not the best, the training grounds are not the best, I think that might have had some kind of an effect as well on why people are tired and why people have picked up foot injuries, back injuries, stuff like that. It is a serious concern. It's the very opposite of peaking at the right moment, isn't it? Yeah. And the couple of times that Rooney has been out and come back, he actually cut a little bit of a sad figure, I thought, in the Manchester derby, because he clearly could not do the things that he is doing, and it was very selfless of him again to be playing in that situation. But he was playing almost as a decoy.
Yeah.
Martin, as our resident Chelsea aficionado, we've touched on John Terry there. What's up with JT at the moment, form and fitness-wise, and is it a problem for Capello?
I don't think there's a shadow of a doubt that he's been affected by certain off-field issues that have taken place during the season. And
what were those?
I don't know. I'll leave you fill in the gaps, Steve. I think also he's had problems carrying the rest of the defence. Chelsea have been without their first choice of full-backs for much of the time since Christmas. So he's not just been concentrating on the centre, he's been looking after them as well. When it comes to England, no, if I had to put my money on it, I say yes, he will be back. He will have his head screwed on in the right direction and will do the job this summer.
And would there not be even more media scrutiny and intensity around him in South Africa? And how do you think he'll cope with that?
There will, but at the same time, footballers these days exist in such a hermetically sealed bubble. You can get away from that if you want to. And they will be squirreled away from all the media and the attention during the tournament. And if there's one guy you would back to have his players focused on the game, it's someone like Capello.
And Capello has been in the press this morning talking about the possibility of taking Ledley King to the World Cup. Steve, is it time to start thinking of the likes of Michael Dawson and Phil Jagielka, maybe Adam Johnson in midfield and Bobby Zamora up front? Should we be rewriting that England squad now?
Well, I think you can really make a case for Michael Dawson, can't you? Because that position is in such a state of flux. You don't know whether Ferdinand's going to be all right. Terry, we've said. Ledley King is outstanding. He's a fantastic player, but he cannot play two games in a row, and he can't train.
And Capello has said all along that he doesn't want to take players who haven't got international experience, and he doesn't want to take players who aren't fit to train between matches. Mm-hmm. So he's really narrowed himself down. He's almost boxed himself into a corner with what he's saying he expects from his players. And Dawson would be great. Ledley would be great, but only if he's prepared to take him to play every other game and not train in between. And that clearly is not workable where you've got a problem with other players like Rio. You can't carry players. We saw what happened at the last World Cup when we went in with Rooney, who wasn't fit, Owen, who had only just come back from a long-term injury and wasn't really fit, and they both...
Beckham, of course.
Beckham. There's a trail of these players being taken to World Cups really more on hope and reputation.
I think Adam Johnson's time, sorry to interrupt there, Adam Johnson's time will come, but I don't think he's ready for it yet. He's only played a few games in
the only thing is maybe there is room for an inexperienced attacking player who maybe the opposition don't know so much about.
I agree with that. I think at the back you have got to dance with the guys who brought you to the party. Do you know what I mean? Even though they might be falling apart to a certain extent. But I would take Adam Johnson, but then I really like Adam Johnson because he plays with City.
So who would be your wild card pick for the England World Cup squad? Let's go around the table. Gareth.
A wild card probably would be Adam Johnson, but it would be a gamble. You think back to Theo Walcott in the last World Cup, and that was a disaster. I don't think it would happen again. But yeah,
we had a nice holiday out of it.
Very nice,
and we all got to see Melanie Slight, so that worked for me.
Martin?
For me, if he's going to take 5 strikers, the guy who has done nothing wrong for me when he's come on for England is Carlton Cole. It has shown he can step up to that level. I know that the other 4 berths are pretty much settled, but he would be the extra man for me.
Still questions over his fitness, though. Do you think?
Yeah. But it's 7 games. We're not expecting him to play in all of them. It's a guy who can come on off the bench and straight away step in and look like he's.
There's another player playing for a team near the bottom of the table, and we're playing against the best players in the world. So we should surely be taking players who are at the top end of the table. If you're looking to take players maybe as fringe players who will have to be thrown in, and in all likelihood thrown into the really big games, because by the time you get the injuries that leave the opening for those sort of players come later in the tournament, you need players who are playing for the big clubs or the successful clubs. And that's why there's a very good case for taking Adam Johnson. There's a decent case for taking Zamora if you're going to take an inexperienced player, because he's done well in Europe, hasn't got any international experience, but he's playing in a successful team, going in high of confidence. And at the back, I would probably take Jagielka.
Steve, who's on your plane?
Well, Bobby Zamora, I think is maybe not on the plane, but I certainly think you should have a look at him in the next in the next friendly, and deserves to be in the 30, I think, and then he can decide from there. But as Mark says, I think it's too much of a risk. Jagielka is a good player, but I mean, he's only just back from injury, isn't he? I think Wes Brown's probably out of it for the same reason, although Jagielka's been back for a couple of months.
Yeah, I think Jagielka's proved his fitness over the last 6 weeks, and I think that he's a good, solid player.
Yeah,
more than good and solid.
But who the centre backs are for the first game, I've got absolutely no idea. I really don't know.
Well, I would
John
imagine
Terry's playing the worst, but he's probably the only one that's surefire to start.
Rio and Terry will be okay for the first match because they won't have played for 2 or 3 weeks, so they'll be fit. But the problem then comes with the second and third games, and then the knockout stages where they start to fall apart, I should imagine.
Is John Terry, is his sort of lack of mobility, is it a new thing, or has this been happening for a couple of years?
He's had so many injuries.
He had the back injury, didn't he?
And he's played through injuries, and that takes its toll.
Well, there's plenty more opportunity for our World Cup stars to get injured in the last few weeks of the season. And let's turn our attention to the climax of the most insane Premier League season yet and try to work out who's going to win this thing and who will finish fourth. So, chaps, I need you to put your prediction hats on. We're going to take the Champions League race first. Now, Tottenham are currently in fourth with 64 points. Mike Allen, can you please call the results of their remaining games?
Right, well, without a hint of bias against Man United at Old Trafford, I think Spurs will lose. I think it'll be an open game and United will love that. And then I think that Spurs will beat Bolton. They'll beat Man City at Eastlands. I just think that Spurs have got too much know-how. Ledley King will play in that game, and I think he does make a heck of a difference to them in those big matches. And then they'll finish off by beating Burnley away from home.
If I've got my maths right, that gives them 73 points. Martin, can you take us through City's remaining games to see who's going to be going into the Champions League?
Away at Arsenal on Saturday, I can only see that being a draw. I'm not going to predict whether Adebayor is going to score or not. That's one for us on Saturday, hopefully. Aston Villa at home, I think at Eastlands, Man City will win that. I'm going to go against Mike. I think City will just have a bit too much for Tottenham at home. I just think Spurs have played so well in the last couple of weeks. They've just almost overreached themselves with their performances against Arsenal, against Chelsea as well. Like Mike, I can't see Tottenham getting anything out of Old Trafford. But I just think that will be almost running out of puff, and I can see City fired up for it, winning the game at Eastlands. And then by the end of the season, I think West Ham would have stayed up by then, but I could see that being a draw when City go down to Upton Park.
And if West Ham do need the points, a Carlos Tevez hat-trick of own goals, I think, will see us right. Right, well, that leaves Martin Booth predicting 70 points for City. So, sorry, Steve, it looks like you're not going to Europe next season.
Yeah, but if you take Mike's 3 points off Tottenham, from the Tottenham game, then that gives them 70 points each. So we've absolutely sorted this one right now.
That was as clear as mud. All bets are off. Okay, now to the top of the table. Chelsea are leading the league with 77 points. Steve, you've got the task of picking the Blues results. Take us through them.
Well, the trickiest one, I think, is Stoke on Sunday at home. Stoke are a really good team away. I mean, they're a really good team anyway, but away from home, they've been excellent. They've got points off top teams. They've not lost in the last 5 away. They've picked up a couple of wins. I think that, especially without John Terry, who's suspended, of course, I think that is a draw.
And that might how Chelsea perform may depend on how the match earlier in the day has
been. Of course,
Absolutely.
yeah, of course.
With Man United.
So that's absolutely crucial. I think Liverpool away. Liverpool have got a great home record, but I think Chelsea will rally and win that one. So that's 3 points. And then Wigan at home, Wigan will be safe by then, and they're probably safe now, to be fair, after beating Arsenal last week. So I think that's 3 points as well. So that is 7 points, I believe, which takes them up to 84.
Gareth, can Man United pip them? Your predictions, please.
I predict Man United will win all their remaining games. I think they'll be too strong for Tottenham at Old Trafford. At Sunderland, nothing to play for. I can only see Man United win. And Stoke at home, Stoke can be tricky, but again at Old Trafford, I cannot see anything else apart from Man United win.
So the title's going back to Old Trafford, Martin. You must be very disappointed by that state of affairs.
I think whatever happens, it will go to that last afternoon. I can't see anything but a horribly, horribly tense afternoon for fans of both Chelsea and United.
What do you think is? I mean, do you think that Stoke is the tricky one, or do you think? I mean, Liverpool away is tricky, surely.
To be honest, Steve, I think they're all tricky. I think you're absolutely right to say that Stoke will be tricky, but the thing is about Chelsea, if Chelsea play as they can play, if they play like they did at Old Trafford a couple of weeks ago, they can and will beat anybody. If they turn up with their game heads completely missing like they did at White Hart Lane, they could lose those last 3 games. It's as simple as that. They're the one team, I think, over the top 3 who at times this season have played like champions with their performances at the Emirates and at Old Trafford. They've been as inconsistent as the others on other occasions. If they get it right, if Ancelotti gets their head straight, I can see them winning the last 3 games, no bother at all. But it's a huge if.
Yeah. That's been the big thing with this season, though, is that the matches have been very difficult to predict, and the top 2 teams have lost so many games, and that's been great for the league. Whether it's been a levelling up or a levelling down, we could argue about another day, but it's been a terrific league this season, and the reason there are all these issues still to be decided because nobody really knows which way all the games are going to go.
Yeah, and it's not been decided in the league. The title is not being decided out of the big 4, is it? It's being decided by games against the teams in the top half of the table, the top 12 in the table.
Yes, really. Who have all got things to play for themselves.
Yeah.
Great, well, plenty there to look forward to over the coming weeks. And that's it for us for another week of Mirror Football Podcast. So thanks very much to our guests, Mike Allen, Steve Anglesey, Martin Booth and Gareth Cox. We'll be coming back to you next Friday. See you then.